What's going on, guys? I wanted to make a quick shop tip video specifically geared towards slip joint makers or even those of you who might repair or modify existing slip joints. But I see this question on the forums quite a bit, especially for newer makers, asking how you set your center pin after you set your spring tension on a slip joint. And this one I've kind of been adjusting and playing around with. It's kind of in various stages of completion here, but I have ground this back spring flush when everything's set and put together, and you can see it does have a decent amount of set in it as it is currently proud without the pin in the middle there. And what I need to do is compress that spring so that the center hole here lines up. And I don't know how well it's going to show up on the camera. I'll see if I can focus. Hopefully you can see that those holes aren't exactly aligned, and if I were to try to stick the pin in there, obviously it's not going anywhere. So the way that I used to do this, and it's maybe a little bit harder on the knife if you don't have a pair of soft jaws in your vise, which I currently don't on this one. But a pretty fairly easy and straightforward way is just to set it in the vise like this and use the vise itself to compress this. I think I've even used a pair of channel locks before just to kind of push that spring in, and then usually I have a tapered center pin that'll kind of go in there and kind of help guide everything into alignment. But a better way that I've heard about and just recently started trying myself is to actually use the quill on your drill press, or in my case, milling machine, and use that with a little homemade kind of a push rod, which I'll show you here in a moment, to push the spring down. Now ideally I'll probably make a carriage or a little carrier to kind of cradle this knife, just to keep it square and straight, especially if I'd already contoured the handles so it wouldn't quite sit on top of the vise like this. And I could always take this block out, set it down into the vise, use some parallels to kind of hold it as needed. But just to show you real quickly, and make sure we're in focus here. Just using the quill and kind of a little bit of a light touch, kind of going back and forth on this. And again, you can see where the cradle would come in handy, although it's not completely necessary, but just kind of rocking that up and down very slightly. You can see how easily that spring is compressed and the pin pushed in, especially got a little bit of a taper on it. Although I think I could do that just as easily, or almost as easily, if it was a squared off pin. But to show you what I got here, this is just a broken off end mill that I've ground some flats on. Let's see if I can get that to focus a little better. And just kind of ground a little flat surface there on the end, just a little bit narrower than the spring on this knife, and then kind of put a little bit of a rounded end on it so that the corners don't dig into the back spring. But it's fairly easy to make just with a belt sander. You could even use probably a mild steel rod and use a file, or if you got the mill, you could mill the flats in there. And I know some guys use spade bits like you'd use for wood boring and such, just kind of soften the points or grind them off on that, as they're already relatively thin. And that's an option as well. But really anything that you can chuck up into your drill press quill and put a little flat on the end of it should work just fine. So that's really it for the shop tip, guys. Hopefully that gives you guys some ideas if you've been struggling with the problem of setting your springs and your center pins back together. And if you guys have any questions or comments, appreciate you leaving them below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed already to the channel, I would appreciate that as well. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.